President Trump is expressing growing frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin, promising to boost U.S. military aid to Ukraine just days after the Pentagon ordered a pause in critical weapons deliveries to Kyiv. During yesterday's cabinet meeting, reporters asked the president who ordered the initial pause on Ukraine assistance.
Last week, the Pentagon paused some shipments of weapons to Ukraine. Did you approve of that pause?
We wanted to put defensive weapons because Putin is not treating human beings right. He's killing too many people. So we're sending some defensive weapons to Ukraine, and I've approved that.
So who ordered the pause last week?
I don't know. Why don't you tell me?
All right, CNN reports Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did not inform the White House before he authorized a pause on weapons shipments to Ukraine last week.
How do you do that?
According to 5 sources familiar with the matter.
Wait. A Secretary of Defense? A Secretary of Defense pauses weapons transfers, and you don't tell the Commander-in-Chief? And one of the 2 most important foreign policy issues that are going on right now, a war that the president promised to stop, and you have a SecDef just winging it, not telling the Commander-in-Chief? We'll get to that in a second. Here's the president, who is the Commander-in-Chief, who
is the one in charge.
Is in charge. Is this like Hegseth giving Elon Musk a secret briefing on China before the White House found out about it? Is he going to do whatever he wants to do? Well, here's President Trump explaining to reporters why he wants to continue sending weapons aid to Ukraine.
We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers. His soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week. And I'm not happy with Putin. And I don't know, we get a lot of bull thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
You know, Jonathan Lemire, you reported on this several weeks ago that, Donald Trump wanted to be different. And everybody's talked about this relationship with Vladimir Putin, but let's just assume he wanted America to have better relations with Russia. And he thought that he would be the guy that would be able to do it. You wrote a couple weeks ago that he has given Vladimir Putin enough rope, and he continues to. And Putin just won't take, he won't take the victory that Donald Trump is trying to hand him. Saying, listen, the war can come to an end. You can have Crimea. You can have these. And by the way, these are the same things that the Biden administration were whispering as well, saying, I know Mark Milley was saying Russia's not going to get to Kyiv and Ukraine's not going to get back all of their land. He told me that back in 2023, right? So this is nothing shocking. But Donald Trump continues to give Vladimir Putin benefit of the doubt. Vladimir Putin continues to mock him, ridicule him, thumb his nose at him. And as your reporting suggested a couple of weeks ago, the president is only going to have so much patience. And it looks like his patience is running out with a guy who continues to ridicule, ignore, and mock him.
Yeah, Putin has only escalated this conflict. And you're right. I mean, I reported some time ago, President Trump, he simply wants this war to end. He does want to improve relations with Russia. You weigh in on that another time, whether that's worth it. But that's what he wants to do. He wants business deals with Russia, rare mineral deals with Russia. He wants and he also wants simply the fighting to end. It's a largely frozen conflict. They have proposed sort of ending things along these lines. Ukraine has objected to some of that. But Ukraine, let's remember, agreed a long time ago to the U.S. proposal for a ceasefire. Russia still has not. And in fact, it's Moscow is stepping up their attacks. And we should note President Trump frustrated yesterday also at the Pentagon. Eldridge Colby is another name to keep in mind here. Pentagon top official there, policy planning. He and Hegseth seem to be the ones behind this pause while they did an inventory of U.S. arsenal. Seemingly the president
Can I ask you about that? I mean, that rises to such a high level. I'm shocked that any Secretary of Defense would freeze weapons transfers to a country that is like on the front lines of a hot war in Europe. I mean, this reminds me of him deciding to give Elon Musk, according to reports, a secret briefing on China before the White House found out and said, no, don't. Donald Trump coming out going, he's got economic interest in China. Don't give him that briefing. But we see this again. I mean, this is pretty shocking, isn't it? That you'd have a Secretary of Defense unilaterally make this decision, according to 5 different sources. Tell me what you're hearing about.
Did the president know anything about this?
Yeah, Pete Hegseth blindsiding the commander-in-chief on an issue this big.
Yeah. Now, look, we certainly know in the past President Trump is quick to distance himself from things, that may be unpopular. He claims he doesn't know about them. Later, it turns out he did. But in this case, it does appear that this did not go to the Oval Office. This was a decision made at the Pentagon. They were doing a weapons inventory. What do we have left in our stockpiles? And to be fair, there are concerns across the defense community about the low supplies that the U.S. has.
Right.
But there was not seemingly an order from the White House to stop these shipments
the commander-in-chief
to Kyiv.
know?
Of course.
Like, if there are low supplies in our weapons, shouldn't the commander-in-chief be told that and say, Mr. President, commander-in-chief, what would you like to do?
Yeah, that would be the correct order, the sequencing here. And that was not the case here. And there's been real frustration, and we know this. We've talked about this on the show, growing frustration within the West Wing as to how Defense Secretary Hegseth has been running the Pentagon, not just Signalgate, but sort of the day-to-day operations there and how he's managing and has so few voices around him in the Pentagon that the White House trusts. So there's a lot to explore here. Let's bring in a great panel to help us do so. MSNBC contributor Mark Barnicle joins us, as well as New York Times opinion columnist David French, and contributing writer for The Atlantic and a former speechwriter for President George W. Bush, Pete Wehner. He's also a senior fellow at the Trinity Forum, a faith-based nonprofit. Great to see you all, guys. David, let's start with you. This is increasingly tough rhetoric from President Trump towards Vladimir Putin, but we know that every so often he does this. He sort of gets angry at Putin but doesn't follow through with action. However, there is a signal here that maybe this time that'll be different. We heard from Senator Lindsey Graham late last night telling reporters on Capitol Hill that he believes President Trump is willing to support that tough round of sanctions that's been stalled in the Senate for a while because Trump previously didn't give his blessing. Now, the White House didn't weigh in on this. They simply pointed to Trump's comments. And so it seems like it's not official yet. But Graham optimistic that maybe as soon as next week, these sanctions could be a go.
Well, one thing that's happening is Putin is overplaying his hand right now. Putin, by launching wave upon wave of attacks on civilian targets in Ukraine, what he's doing is he's essentially just thumbing his nose at Donald Trump. He knows Trump wants to get some indication, some hope that there's some possibility of peace here, or at least a ceasefire. And Putin keeps doubling down. And it's starting to make Trump look bad. It's starting to make Trump look weak. And while Trump obviously has no real love for Ukraine, Trump has a lot of love for Trump. And Trump doesn't want Vladimir Putin to make a fool of him on the world stage. There might actually be right now a window of opportunity to get some additional aid to Ukraine, to get some additional sanctions on Russia. And if there is that window of opportunity, by all means seize it.